would love to chat with you about it if you are interested in joining at all, because we're doing rolling applications this semester due to all the pandemic craziness. So we'd love to have you join us. But yeah, so if we just want to get started, I'm going to start by asking our participants to introduce themselves. I'll start with Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here today. My name is Alyssa Powers. I work for Karl Strauss Brewing Company here in San Diego. So I was the one with the beer in my hand in the group photos. But I'm currently the content marketing manager. And then in current COVID times, I'm actually exploring doing some beer writing on the side and a little bit of freelance work. So I'm actually just starting to explore that as well.
Thank you. We'll go with Lauren next.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am a USD alum and a Sigma Tau Delta alum as well. I'm a copy and content consultant. So I work from home and I work with a bunch of different brands, Verizon Media, Yahoo, The Honest Company, a few little skincare brands that are up and coming. And I help them with, their words and their content and how to reach their consumers where they are.
Thank you. If Melanie would like to go.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I'm Mel Ordonez. I'm a senior content strategist at NuVasive. So we're a medical device company up in Sereno Valley, and we focus on spine. And I'm on the broader global marketing team. So kind of work as like an in-house agency for our clients, which are actually our product managers for different business units within the company.
All right, thank you. So our first question is, why did you choose your current profession and how did USD prepare you for your career? If Alyssa would like to start.
Sure. So USD certainly did prepare me because I actually had an internship my senior year. So I'm a comm major. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Class of 2012. So my senior year, I had a comm internship class, and that was actually at Karl Strauss. They had an opening there on their marketing team. So that was really helpful to get to see if I liked the industry. I had just turned 21 and I found I absolutely liked the industry. So craft beer became a really big passion of mine. And the internship sort of logically led to the job. So that was really helpful. So absolutely, I would say my USD courses, kind of prepared me for the team environment of working on a team. So that was a really, really valuable asset as well.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I truly had no idea what I wanted to do up until after graduation. But I think that USD really prepared me in helping me develop my voice as a writer and follow my passion. And at the end of the day, when I didn't really know exactly what profession I wanted to go into, I thought maybe PR at first. Those skills that I developed in my classes and with the professors that I had really close relationships with really pointed me toward writing as something I'm really good at and something I'm really passionate about. And from there, things fell into place because when you're passionate about something, it's easy to get other people on board. And then you can get a job and you can convince people that you can help them achieve what they're looking for.
Thank you. Mel?
Yeah, for me, my dad is actually in product marketing pretty much all his life. And so I got exposed to marketing as I was growing up. And then talking to my parents, they were always saying, like, can definitely see you in marketing because I love all of the business side of things, but definitely more toward that creative side. So that's the marketing part of business. So that's how I picked marketing because I was a marketing major. And then USD, I definitely took advantage of the handshake program. So excited to see that that's still something you guys are using because I probably got all of my internships through there. And it's always the hardest to get your first one. And that's how I got it, was through handshake, just having that, I think that USD connection. They knew where you were coming from as a student. But yeah, and then I got my current job, like I got involved with NuVasive due to a market, like I think it was an AMA event. So a marketing career fair sometime in the spring, my junior year. And then I went there, had no clue what NuVasive was, talked to the representatives there at the site, and got my first internship that summer with them. And then I stayed with them since. So it's been almost, I guess, 4.5 years since that internship.
Thank you. All right, our next question is, how do you define content creation and production? Alyssa?
Yeah, so as I was thinking about this question, it's hard for me to define it without using the word content in it. So I'm going to try my best. But in my mind, content creation it's anything that your customer or fan or potential customer interacts with your brand. So at least digitally speaking. So it could certainly be the words on your website, or an email autoresponder that gets a customer to do a certain thing, or a blog post or a social media caption, right? Any kind of piece of content that your customer is interacting with. And I think it's sort of the making of, but also the sharing of that content. That's part of that creation and production. So a big thing for me is kind of making that piece of content valuable, right? So the customer that you're interacting with, or maybe a potential customer, if you're trying to get them in, you're providing value to that person in some way. So that's kind of a helpful way, instead of like, I need a blog post and I need it this week. Okay, well, what's a question that you're solving for that customer, right? Or just making sure that it has value to them, and kind of keeping your customer in mind when you're creating that content. I used content a couple times, but that was pretty okay.
No worries, it was still an excellent answer. Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, so content has changed a lot in the past 10 years. And when I first started, I started out at Creative Artist Agency, which is a talent agency here in LA, and they had an advertising department. And they were really at the forefront of what content meant in that moment. And what they were doing, instead of like putting on a commercial spot or, putting up a digital banner, they were really creating episodes of like TV that had product placement, or they were creating music videos with animation. And that really taught me that a key part of content, no matter how it's evolving, is that it's an entertaining piece that meets the customer where they are. So if it's on TV, you want it to feel like it should be on TV. It's an entertaining show, or a music video like we were doing, or, a lot of what I'm working with right now are blog posts. And for The Honest Company, what I do is write blog posts for moms that teach them something. And then you kind of slide a little product in there. And then on the other side, for your client, you're trying to provide value for them in another way. It's kind of hard to convince clients that they need content. So you've got to have your brain on that end too. And with blog posts, what you can do is you can really bolster the SEO value of a website. So there's so many different things you can do, and it's always evolving, but really just think about, exactly what Alyssa said, which is providing value and meeting a customer's needs.
Okay, thank you. Mel?
Yeah, I would say, echo everything that Alyssa and Lauren just said. For me, I think defining content creation, I would say, is like the brains behind all the content you consume. So like Lauren said, there's so many different platforms and form factors that you consume content on. And like, that's the fun part of my job, is like figuring out like, okay, you can't, like she said, you can't share content that you'd share on Instagram on your website. Like, it's going to be tailored a little bit. Like, it can still stem from a similar messaging and positioning document, but it's going to be tweaked a little bit because that's a different audience. And then the other part I would say is just making that user experience for whoever's consuming the content like seem very seamless and just effortless, really. So you don't want, as a consumer, even for like things I read in my downtime, and for all of you, like, you don't want to think hard when you're consuming content. Like, it needs to be easy, does not seem like it's a brain challenge when you're consuming it. So that's the other part I really like, is like dumbing it down, because that's how they want to consume the content. Don't make it too, complicated with any additional words or anything.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, please walk us through a typical day or project at work, including the technology you utilize in your role. Alyssa?
So certainly there hasn't been a typical day since around March, as I'm sure we're all aware. But that being said, I thought of an example that maybe kind of applies to this. So I run our email marketing program, and an assignment I got somewhat recently from my boss was, hey, we need to promote the Karl Strauss brew pubs, since they are now somewhat open again, with outdoor seating, and but really we want to focus on to-go sales. So blast that over the email program. So I thought, okay, but that's a little bit like salesy, right? And like, come in and get food to go. So I wanted to try to make it, again, with like the value, as valuable as possible for the people reading the email blast, and definitely still sell them and encourage them to come in and get their beer and food and whatnot. So I created an email campaign that was focused on beer and food pairings that they could do at home. Because that's something that Karl Strauss is really big on. Pre-COVID, if you'd come into one of the brew pubs, the server would kind of walk you through talking about beers and help you like choose a food item based on that beer and vice versa. So I kind of did like a, build your own beer pairing dinner, at home, and pick some of our food items, some of our most popular beers. And so, the sales team was happy because I was pitching beers that they wanted to sell, and then still encouraging people to come in and buy stuff to go, but kind of wrapped in a thing that was actually helpful for them, or at least interesting, if not. So that was kind of a specific example in COVID times. In terms of technology, it is a brewery, so we're not super tech savvy, but some things that we definitely do use. Slack to communicate as a team. Now almost exclusively we're using that. We also use Microsoft Teams for meetings, which I realize is a Slack competitor, but there you go. And just a personal program that I use would be Trello for organization. You can kind of create different boards and whatnot. So that I use for personal organization, work organization. So that's a huge tool for me personally as well.
Thank you so much. Lauren?
I was dreading this question because I really don't have a typical day ever. And it's something that I like about being a consultant. I'm kind of a restless person, so I hate doing the same thing every single day. So I'm constantly doing something different, which is really great about going into this business, especially kind of like what I was talking about before, where content means so many different things. So if I'm doing like blog post content, that's an easy day where I'm waking up, I'm opening Google Docs, and I'm really just focusing a few hours on writing that blog post and doing kind of like search engine keyword searches and plugging them in. But then I have days like I just got off a project working for Verizon Media where they were kind of doing their version of the Apple Keynote. So on those days, I would be, up at 7:30 in the morning talking to people in London about building a new website that could create an interactive experience for employees across the country to explore these new products, and kind of like gamifying that situation. And then today I am gonna log off here and open up Google Slides and work on a presentation to pitch the next project I'm working on, which is marketing cell phones. So the biggest piece of advice if you want to get into content creation, I can say, is just say yes to things and learn a bunch of different things, because you will be asked to get out of your comfort zone constantly.
Thank you so much. Mel?
Yeah, for me, I'll take the specific project side of the question. So for me, our product launches are kind of my biggest projects for each year, probably have 3 to 4 large products that launch. And I didn't explain this well when we talked about where we work, but our customers are surgeons, so spine surgeons across the globe. So definitely a different type of consumer, not someone who's too tech savvy at all. They're super busy. You can imagine, like, they don't have a ton of time to be scrolling on LinkedIn or watching YouTube videos. So with that work with around a product launch, I had to think of everything between what's the external content we're promoting for the surgeons? How are they going to look at our website, our LinkedIn posts, our email campaigns? So that's one side of it. And then the other side is like our commercial readiness. So talking to the sales force, making sure they understand what are the key messages, what should they be communicating to their surgeons, and what tools do they need to sell a new product, a new implant, a new technology to their surgeons or hospitals. So it's kind of twofold, because sales reps are still they're honestly the biggest selling point for the industry I'm in. And they're like the ground cover. And then we think of our social media, our website, our emails to be more of like the air cover. So it's balancing the two of those and making sure that content strategy is seamless throughout the entire experience for the surgeon. Oh, and then technologies we use, Microsoft Teams, like Alyssa said, we use that for pretty much everything now. And then other tools, we use Seismic. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a sales enablement platform. It's local to San Diego, actually. I think they're more of like in their startup phase, but they're getting pretty big, and that's how we communicate to our sales reps. I would say those two are the two I use the most day to day.
Thank you, Mel. All right, our next question is, what is the most challenging aspect of your job and what is the most rewarding? Alyssa?
Most challenging. So I am quite lucky that the product that I market, people tend to like, right? So that's fairly easy. People tend to like beer or want to learn more about it. But a way to look at that as a challenge is, Carl Strauss is one of 100+ breweries in San. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of noise that we have to compete against, and it's a very friendly industry, so it's hardly cutthroat. But it's kind of separating ourselves from other breweries. Is there a way that we can describe this new beer or this new event pre-COVID, in a way that's fresh, that's new, that's different, that fans that are super passionate about beer already, how are we marketing to them versus someone who is maybe new to the industry or doesn't necessarily really love beer but wants to learn some more. How are we tailoring our messages to the different types of customers that we have? So that's certainly the challenge that's always ongoing, but also definitely the most rewarding is I'm certainly in an industry that I have a lot of passion for, right? I'm a fan as well as a marketer within beer. So definitely that's what's most rewarding.
Definitely. Thank you, Alyssa. Would you like to go next, Lauren?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part for me is working really hard to gain the trust of my clients and, the marketing professionals that I'm working with. As someone in a creative role, you're always going to be the person that wants to do what's next and what hasn't been done before and something new and different and exciting, because that's just the way my brain works. But on the other side of the coin, a lot of marketing managers, or the people who are requesting the work from you, are aiming for data, and they're looking at numbers, and their job depends on sort of playing it safe. And so it takes time to develop those relationships with people so that they understand that, like, hey, my goal at the end of the day is the same thing. Like, I want people to buy this product. I want people to click on this ad. I just feel like I have a new and different way of going about it so that we can stay ahead of the curve. And that takes time. It takes, trial and error. And sometimes you have an amazing idea and you get a no, and it's not going to be a yes. And that's really heartbreaking sometimes. But on the flip side, the most rewarding part of my job is when I do gain that trust with my clients and I can get them to make something really cool. And that means, like, my job is fun and my job is creative, and I have something to show people and say, like, look at this really cool new thing we did. And there's nothing like that. And that's kind of what keeps me going on all the days I get a no.
Thank you for sharing that. Mel?
Yeah, I would say most challenging for me is, even though we're in an in-house agency, like that's how we act. All of our different business units are completely different. It could be for your cervical spine, it could be for your thoracolumbar spine, like it could be the software used in the OR. And so we kind of cover the whole procedure, whether that be hardware or capital systems. And the hardest part with that is, say you get really good at a product launch and you nail it for this year, like I already know next year, even though I did it this year, it's going to be challenging because it's a different type of surgeon, it's a different target. There's going to be different trends, like Lauren was saying, like it's never the same, which is challenging, but it's like it'd be boring if it was. And then on the other side, what's most rewarding for me is I never knew I was going to be in the medical device industry. I thought I was going to be doing something more with like consumer brands that I use and marketing those types of products. And I've learned that I love it so much because I wake up every day with so much purpose. I'm like, okay, if I market this well, that means a surgeon's going to see it. We're all about minimally invasive surgery, so not so quicker recovery time, like less blood loss, like all the things you'd want if you were having spine surgery. So it's definitely rewarding working for the medical device, like biotech type industry. And I've learned to love it and definitely like going to work and making these products known.
Thank you. How do you or your company define success? Alyssa?
Yeah, this is a good question because the obvious part of the answer is, we're selling a product, right? And so my direct boss is the marketing and sales manager. So he definitely, as we've kind of mentioned before, he's a numbers guy, right? And he's looking at the data. And if I have an email blast, he wants to know the open rate and what percentage of people clicked on it. Versus my mind, I kind of go with like more of the fluffy marketing side, right? But we balance each other well. So I would say there's that kind of obvious success marker, but then also it's more of the core values or a purpose, right? The company purpose. So ours, it's a little foo-foo, but it's making people happy one Karl Strauss beer at a time, which I really like. It's that kind of old school in-person interaction, over a beverage. And so that kind of like warm, fuzzy vibe balances out really nicely with, yeah, we're trying to get you to buy our beer, certainly, but, hopefully you're going to enjoy the process along the way. So I think that's caused a lot of people with similar mindsets and similar passions to come work for this company. So you're surrounded by people that are kind of passionate about the same things that you are. So yeah, I would say that it's that nice balance of, qualitative success and quantitative success.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I think the reason why I've been able to gain the trust of so many of my clients is that at the end of the day, we define success in the same way. I like to see high click-through rates. I like to see big numbers. I like to see business success. Whenever I'm attacking a project, it's really easy as a creative person to be selfish and say, like, I just want to make something really cool. But it's so important to come at it from the lens of, like, if this was my business, what would I want? And what you want is to make money. And so that's what I want for my clients. The difference, and kind of like what I was talking about before, is that there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem. And my job is to come at it the most creative way. So how do I get those numbers? How do I make those sales, but do it in a way that people, it's not your everyday ad that's going to bore people? How do you make it exciting?
Thank you. Mel?
Yeah, for me, I would say when I looked at this question, I definitely interpreted it more so like, what do I define as success just in my own career? And I think what resonates with me most is something my very first boss told me. And he said, if I wake up every day and I can answer these 3 questions with a yes, then I'm in the right place. And whenever I can say no to them, then maybe that's a sign that like I should move on to something else. And the 3 questions are, am I learning? Am I passionate about this? And what's the third one I'm forgetting right now? Am I learning? Do I have purpose when I wake up? And the third one, why am I forgetting right now? Sorry, guys. The third one, is am I having fun? And so if I can answer yes to all 3 of those, then I'm in the right place. And that's how I can determine success for myself, for more like my future success, and like what do I see myself doing, I don't know, and live for that. So I think those 3 questions of like a check-in with myself helps me feel like I'm doing the right thing right now.
Thank you. The next question is, what are the skills and qualifications that you look for in job candidates? Would Alyssa like to go first?
Yeah, so besides the obvious ones, right? So you're all USD students, right? You've got the obvious ones covered that are going to be on every job description. So I was trying to think of some that are a little maybe off the wall or maybe not the first things that come to mind. And so one of those I think is excellent writing skills. And that's something that I actually wish I would have taken more English courses in college. I'm a fine writer, it's fine, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more backing behind that. So that's sort of a skill that I didn't necessarily think I would be using, kind of creative writing, really narrative style content as much as I am, which is a great surprise. But that would be kind of a recommendation, is pretty much in any role, whether it's marketing or something completely different, like you're going to be writing, even if it's really excellent, concise emails, right? So writing skills, and then the other, just extremely organized, and that doesn't matter what role you're going into, in terms of self-organization, but also being able to manage multiple projects at the same time. Probably most roles are going to be working on a lot of different things at once. And so just having that good sense of organization is always key.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, for an entry level position, I'm really looking for someone who wants to learn. And so when you're interviewing at the end, where they're like, do you have any questions? If the person says no, then that's always like people who come prepared with ask, deep questions about, what is my day-to-day? How do you think I'll be successful in this role? And somebody who wants to really, achieve success, but not come in and think that they know everything right away. So finding the balance of that person who, sounds like they know some stuff, but is ready to learn too.
Thank you so much. Mel?
Yeah, I'd echo what Alyssa and Lauren said. I definitely wish I took some more writing classes. I'm fine with what I have to write at work right now, but it would be nice to have a little bit more of that right off the bat. Like I feel like I have a good grasp of it and like the tone and the writing style that I've developed over the years, but out of the gate, that was on my development plan for the first 2 years, was just to improve my writing. So I'd say English classes, and then also if someone can simplify, because that's a huge part about content creation, is can you simplify your message? And I think good marketing is being concise. So if someone can simplify something and make it easy to digest and quick to understand, that's something that is a skill that I didn't think about as much when I was a student, but now I know like that's the golden campaign right there, is if you have a simple message and people remember it.
Thank you. Okay, so for our last scripted question, what advice do you have for current USD students who are interested in a career in content creation and production? Alyssa?
Yeah, actually, Mel, that's a great point about simplifying. I think that's something that I have to remind myself as well about content creation, right? It kind of seems like it's this giant thing where you have to create this amazing, promo or whatever. But I think that's what it really comes down to is, I know we've kind of echoed bringing value to your customer, but that's really all it is you're solving a problem that your customer might be experiencing, right? And how can you simplify their life in some way? And so I think if you're able to just kind of put, their perspective into your mind, whether it's potential customers or customers that you already have, B2B or B2C, either way, if you can kind of help their day be a little bit easier with whatever type of content you're creating, then you've really done your job. And then you can get into all the fun brand stuff and kind of all the fun extra. But that's really all it is you're just helping people solve a problem.
Thank you, Alyssa. Lauren?
Yeah, so I think the biggest advice I usually give people I'm mentoring who are trying to get into content is to start practicing on your own channels. If you think you might want to get into blogging, you should start a blog, and don't care if anyone ever reads it. Just practice and write a blog post a day. If you are wanting to create social content, start creating things on your Instagram and your own TikTok. Who gets most of her jobs in social media because of her dog Instagram that has 20,000 followers. The hard part about getting into content creation and copywriting is that people need a book from you. They're going to want to see past examples of work you've done. And if you're right out of college, hopefully you've done a few college projects that allow you to have that. But I didn't have anything at all. But you can't go in and be like, well, I don't have anything yet. So create it on your own. Show your style in that way. People will want to buy into you and your own brand.
Thank you. Mel?
Yeah, for me, I'd say we consume content all the time in your free time, when you're at work, like pretty much everywhere in your day to day. And I think something I just recently implemented, like the past, I want to say like past year or so, is just consuming content more consciously. And if I started this back when I was in college, like I would have so many different ideas to bring into work at this point in my career. And I just say consciously because there's a lot of good ideas out there and a lot of also bad ideas. And so now I find myself like, I'll scroll through the promotions tab on my Gmail and like look at, okay, what subject and preview line is like most engaging with me? Like, why do I want to click on it? And then I just have a kind of an internal question there and be like, okay, why did this work? And then as you build that up, like you're going to have so many different ideas you can bring to your work. And we've already done a couple of those ideas with our upcoming product launch. And it's easy because as content creators, your research is a little bit more fun. Like you just look at the brands you really like and see, how can I kind of mirror this in my industry? Like, would this work? How can it work? So I would say, yeah, just consuming content more consciously at an earlier point in your career.
Thank you guys all for your insightful answers. I think now we're going to move on to questions from students. And I already see one in the chat, so I'll read that one out loud and go from there. How would you recommend becoming a marketing manager for someone else as a beginner without having any previous clients? And we can just, does anyone have an answer for that right off the bat, or we can go in the same order we've been going in?
I'm wondering if Lauren wants to jump in. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh yeah, I can jump in. I would just start. Honestly, I got my first job by on LinkedIn, and I don't know if that works anymore because first looking for my job, but finding ways to get one-on-one contact with someone in a company you're wanting to work for. And it might not lead to a job at that company, but people can introduce you to other people. So just ask people to get coffee, ask for advice. Don't necessarily come at it like, please give me this job. It's more like, I want to know about your experience. I'm interested in this. And then just echoing what I about creating examples, like make up pretend marketing campaigns and put them in a Google Slides deck. Just people are really just have some sort of proof or evidence that you know what you're doing. So find ways to be able to bring that to the table.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to jump in on this question, or should we move on to the next one?
I think Lauren did it perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. Our next question from the chat is, what was the most important thing you took away from your time at USD, whether it was internships, and then go Mel?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. It'd probably be connections with internship as a close second, because obviously in my case, the internship did happen to turn into a job, which was very nice. But I think the internship would have been just as helpful if I hated it, because then I think that's equally as valuable, because then you either know whether that's a company you don't want to work for or maybe an industry that you don't want to work for. So if you have an internship and you hate it, don't think that was a waste of time. I think that's equally as valuable for you. But connections, certainly, whether it's, friendships or work connections or, professors that have become mentors and things of that nature. I think that's something that really lasts beyond those 4 years. So yeah, definitely, go into office hours, kind of do all those extra things that you think might not matter, because it might be one of the sort of, random meetings that you go to that could turn into something, business or otherwise. So yeah, I think both of those equally important.
Thank you, Alyssa. Lauren?
Yeah, I think step one, doing exactly what you're doing now by sitting here and listening to, speakers talk is something so valuable you can take away from your time at USD. Once you leave school, unless you go to business school or something like that, it's a lot harder to seek out opportunity. And so taking advantage, office hours are great. And building connections, even with students in your programs, because you'll come across them, later on in your career, or, an old student that you knew might be working at your dream job and they can submit an application for you. So just like taking advantage of this unique time you have in your life to be a learner is the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, going right off of that, internships and just the acts, you guys really have easy access to internships through the Career Development Center, which is amazing because this is your time to experiment with them. Like, I probably had 2 internships where one I can think of that I was in it for the first 2 weeks, and before it I was super passionate about it. I was like, I'm gonna love this internship, I'm gonna want to work here. 2 weeks in, I was like, I don't like working for this industry. How to stay with it for the 3 months. But if I didn't do that then, I would still really want to know would I be good at that industry. And it's so much harder to test things out when you graduate, because you're gonna have to, you can leave whenever, but you typically want to stay for at least a year and a half to really see if you love or you don't like it. Then on the other side, I would say take advantage of things like this, because even after you graduate, like when I want to know, like, what do I want to do with my career path in 5 years, in 10 years, like Google's not helpful. Like what's really helpful is hearing people talk about their careers and seeing what actual roles people have. So that's one thing Google's not super helpful with. You can read a bunch about it, but there's nothing like hearing from Alyssa or hearing from Lauren and hearing them talk about what they do. Like that's really what's rich to learn and like attend in college. So keep taking advantage of these.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice from all of you. Does anyone else have any questions they want to type in the chat or ask aloud? This is your time. Don't be shy, it's okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here. My question is for those of us who are seniors, when is the best time to actually submit an application for potentially starting a job in like May or June? I personally feel like although I'm really eager right now, it might be a little bit fast because I can't commit to something until graduation. So I was just wondering your guys' timeline with that.
Yeah, I think that's tricky when you're going into marketing. I had a lot of friends in school who had jobs lined up as soon as they graduated, and that really wasn't a realistic timeline for me. You know, I did start interviewing early, but I kind of found exactly what you're probably finding, that people want you to start in 2 weeks. So don't get yourself down if you are a senior and you don't have a job immediately upon graduation. Obviously, the logistics of that can be really stressful. It certainly was for me. But what you should do now is set up those coffees. Instead of applying for the job, maybe reach out to a recruiter at the company you want to go to and ask them to have coffee with you or to give advice to a senior who wants a job right out of college, and start building those external relationships faster so that you can, when you do apply for a job, they know you.
Yeah, that's great advice. Does anyone else want to jump in on this question?
Honestly, I would just add to it and say, I definitely agree. Like schedule those coffees. Like that's such great advice that Lauren gave. Another one is just the path I went was finding an internship spring semester at a company I thought I'd want to stay long term at if I had the opportunity to, and they invited me to stay full time. That's another way you can go. I know that's only if you're planning on staying in San Diego or like somewhat local, but that could be another path you could go as a senior.
Thank you. Other questions? Oh, there's one in the chat. Here we go. What USD sources do you recommend to find what major or career is right for you?
As far as your major goes, pay attention to your GE classes. Which ones do you like the most? Like which ones do you not want to fake sick for in the morning? And that can help guide you toward your major. And kind of what I was talking about before, that's kind of going to guide you toward your passion, the things that you are, you know, innately drawn to. And in those introductory courses that you tend to like, set office hours with your teachers. They love you to go to office hours. It's definitely not bothering them, and you'll create really great relationships. And also a secret to office hours is you'll probably up your grade by at least a letter grade by showing up to at least 2 office hours. So do that and ask your teacher questions like, hey, so you're an English teacher. What sort of careers are available for me if I choose to be an English major? You know, you're a comm professor. What sort of career paths? And start to explore from there and figure out, I mean, you know, you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. So ask a lot of questions before you commit.
Yeah, that's really excellent advice. Thank you, Lauren.
Love that answer, and building directly on that. I know me personally, I was super stressed trying to pick a major because I thought it's, you're picking the rest of your life. But don't be too worried about it as well. There's certainly some exceptions that are, a little more, I picture like accounting maybe, but it's clear I'm in marketing. I'm like accounting, but I would say there's a lot of crossover once you kind of get into a career field. It's certainly important kind of where you've started from and what major you had and what knowledge you have based on that. But don't worry so much about like, oh, I can never get a job in marketing unless I was a marketing major or et cetera. There's a lot of majors that kind of build you and prepare you for that world, but don't think it's like the end all be all. Your skills overall will speak volumes for you. So
I also think your minor is something that you kind of forget about. Like one of my biggest regrets of college is that I was an English major, and I really think I should have done like a business minor or something a little bit more practical. So maybe look into balancing the two. If you have maybe a more creative major, pick maybe a more practical minor if you have a more practical, or vice versa.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. Our next question from the chat is, what extracurricular activities at USD helped you prepare for your careers?
I actually did help. So I was in Greek life, and that really helped me with networking in a way that I didn't expect. So, recruitment where you're having to talk to someone one-on-one, it's something that makes me a little bit nervous. I just don't naturally kind of love networking in person. So that was something that, when I'm kind of forced into that situation, then you're building that skill, right? So I think the things that make you maybe a little bit uncomfortable in, a healthy way, that can be a really good tool to kind of build that muscle for you once you leave campus. So, like joining a new club or doing something that feels maybe just a little bit like, left of center of like, oh, maybe I'll check out that group or that club or whatever the case may be. You never know what's going to stick and what's going to kind of come back around and provide you with some really, cool experiences. So I would say don't be afraid to kind of be well-rounded and do all those extracurriculars that maybe just seem like they're more for fun. They'll always come back around and help you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Does anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say I was involved with a couple of different ones, some more for fun, some for my career. But one that sticks out is the AMA group. So just helped with, the marketing events there. I think that just helped me network with more people in my major that were very career driven, like wanted to talk about it outside of class. And then also just getting to connect with different speakers we wanted for events like this. And that already kind of sets you apart. It's kind of a gateway to those companies you invite. So similar to like those coffees you set up so that they at least know you, know your face, know your name. It opens some doors up like that for me as well.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
I have a quick question. They're great. I have a question. So since like we've had a dramatic shift from in the workplace where things have pretty much just gone like pretty fully virtual, as things progress, what job opportunities, even currently or in the future, do you think could open up in the marketing world for that are completely virtual or just in that realm of just virtual workplaces?
Yeah, for me, content creation and copywriting has always been something that was really easy for me to work from home. The challenge was convincing employers and clients that I didn't really need to be in the office. A lot of, you know, people I was working with had kind of the old school view that you needed to be there. So it is a really exciting moment for people who want to work remotely. And I think people are going to start trusting people more to do that. So if you're choosing content creation or anything like that, for that reason, it's a good path to be on. If you're going to go more into like a traditional like marketing manager role, that I would say I would better gonna go back into the office sooner. So kind of picking a career that's like a contributor would be, is that answering your question? I kind of went on a tangent, I feel like.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with Gen Z coming into the picture and making more purchase decisions, content creation is going to become more and more important. You know, right now 46% of advertising success is based on creative and creative thinking, but what we're seeing with Gen Z is that's even more important to them. So I think that's going to grow, and developing your creative skills will be even more of an asset in the future.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, to add on to that, I would say we already saw, you know, a growing trend in digital marketing, but especially with this year in the pandemic, like it accelerated that further. I can even tell on my like broader global marketing team that we had a marketing technology team within that, and they were, you know, utilized pretty well. But as soon as that pandemic hit, the number of projects for that team like skyrocketed. Everyone wanted their webinars, their video educational series, their email campaigns to their customers. So if anything, it'd be just leaning more into digital marketing. I know that I took that class when I was at USD and found out that I loved that aspect of marketing more. And so that helped me kind of go closer to digital versus print and sales types of marketing careers. So I would say that that trend isn't going to stop. It's going to keep going.
Thank you. All right, well, we're just about out of time. So I would like to thank Alyssa and Lauren and Mel for coming back to USD and sharing their advice with us. I'm sure this has been really helpful for everyone. I know it has for me. And so I just want to extend our gratitude to you for taking the time out of your day in this, you know, hectic times is all I can say, to share with students. And yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming. And Katie will be putting the survey for Compass Points in the chat so that you guys can prove you were here and get those points as well. And yeah, so thank you everyone for attending this event. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question about the passport. Do I include the 2 zeros